Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Relative Pitch Podcast. We're so excited for you to be back joining us and listening. Today, we're so excited to have Dr. Devan Moore, the Assistant Director of Bands and Assistant Director of the Cowboy Marching Band at Oklahoma State University. How are you today, Dr. Moore?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to talk to y'all today.
Yes, I mean, we have been following you for some time. Specifically, when I saw your dissertation come past Facebook, I saw it on Facebook. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to have her on the podcast. I remember I was sitting on my best friend's couch. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was just scrolling, and I saw like the info, and I saw the chocolate maestra, and I was like, yep. Gotta have it. Got to have it. So we're just so excited for you to be here with us. Can you just give us a little background about yourself and how did you get, where you are today?
Yeah, so if you had told me 15 years ago that you're gonna be a college band director, I would have laughed at you. It's like if you'd have told me that I was gonna be doing anything with music beyond college, I would have laughed at you.
Really?
Yes, I'm a second generation band director. My dad taught at one of the schools in Tallahassee, Florida for he's still teaching, but he was a band director for 30 plus years.
Mm.
And I watched him go through some stuff and I was like, nope, you can't pay me enough to do that. So obviously being a musical household, we had to play an instrument. So I picked up saxophone in sixth grade and I was good at it. And so I did that through middle school and high school. Um, I got to college. I went to Florida A&M University and I was an engineering student.
Wow.
And I took a calculus class and I had an engineering like seminar that we had that all first year engineering students had to take. And I absolutely hated going to the E school. I loathed getting on that bus and going out there once a week. Um, but I dealt with it. But I was also in a marching band. I made the wind ensemble as a freshman, and we were practicing a lot. That semester, with the Marching 100. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but we were traveling every weekend. Football game, battle of the bands. Football game, battle of the bands. That's what my weekend looked like. And the wind ensemble was preparing to play at ABA in the spring. And so we were practicing, we'd have wind ensemble rehearsal and then go to march band practice and then sometimes come back to wind ensemble rehearsal. So, and then practicing on Saturdays and Sundays too. It's a lot, but I loved every second of that. Like I was constantly in the band room, constantly being surrounded by music, and I didn't hate it. And so that next semester, I changed my major to computer science because I still was like, I ain't trying to do this music thing. This ain't for this. This isn't for me. Because at the time, all I knew was if you major in music, you're going to be a teacher. I hadn't been exposed to all the different avenues that you could potentially take within a profession. So I changed my major to computer science. Very different, I know, right? Um, and I had a professional development class, and we had an assignment where we had to present on where we saw ourselves in 5 years. And I went to the professor and I said, I can't see myself not doing music. And so I came up with something in technology, but I knew then that it was time to stop running and change my major and be a music ed student. And so that summer I changed my major. My grades went up. My life got better. Like everything just became easier. And then I flew through the music ed curriculum. And then I graduated, when did I graduate? Fall of 2011, and took my first job up in Jonesboro, Georgia as an
Uh-huh.
assistant at a high school. And then I very quickly came back to Tallahassee and started teaching at a middle school there. Spent 2 years at my first middle school and then 5 years at my second middle school. And during that time, I got my master's in music education from Florida State. And then in year five, I was offered an opportunity I couldn't pass up to go back for the PhD, and I quit a perfectly good job to go be a broke college student again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
3 years later, here I am. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
I don't know if y'all caught it, but I caught it. She said, and quickly came back to Tallahassee. She
Yeah.
said that Georgia was not for me.
Well,
She said Georgia.
you know, I didn't like it at first. It was kind of a weird thing. Those mid-year hires they're strange. So like I graduated in December. I had to wait for my certification to go through in Florida and then get transferred to Georgia. So I couldn't officially start working until March. But I moved up there the end of January. So for a month, I'm just kind of just in purgatory. Like I knew I had the job, but I couldn't
Yeah.
officially start working. And so
Mhm.
I was living in Stone Mountain, but commuting to Jonesboro, which I don't know if y'all know how far that's a 40-mile
Yes,
drive one way.
yes, oh yes.
And I just graduated, so I don't got no money, and gas gas ain't cheap.
Yes.
Um,
She.
and the I was being paid for like I was being paid for 2 months over 4 months or something like that. So the paychecks were once I started getting paid, it was real trash. But you
Mhm.
know,
Hey,
it's okay. We here
it all
now.
works out. It all
Right.
works
We
out.
we here.
It's those experiences. I mean, so I had the opposite. So I'm a Georgia boy that taught in Florida, and it
Okay.
was very different. It was, I will say, like teaching in Florida was very, very different. So I can
Yeah.
only imagine like how you felt up here and everything. And I had a 40-mile drive to work every day as well. And the gas really adds up very quickly, very
Yes.
quickly. So, I mean, but do you think that that kind of seal the deal of like, okay, this is what I want to do, even in this hard time that it kind of is right now. I still don't want to do anything else. Did you feel that?
So I tell you what really sold it for me, and I'm sad that I skipped over this part in the initial story. My first year in college, the CMENC president at the time is
Mhm.
not the collegiate NAFME. I'm dating myself now a little bit, but he was planning a trip for the CMENC chapter to go to Midwest. So he had started fundraising and doing all this other stuff to make sure that we could put a bus of students on the road and go to Midwest. And so he pulled me in and he said, "Hey, you want to go to Chicago for free?" I said, "Yes." Like
Yes.
I'm from Tallahassee, and when the semester ends, everybody goes away. So I'm always looking for something to do after the semester ends to kind of buy some time before everybody comes back. And so he was like, "Well, I need you to sell cookies outside of the music building to help us fundraise." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I went to Midwest as an engineering student, and it absolutely changed my life.
Mhm.
I never forget. I sat in the Army Brass Quintet did a session on um, developing leaders through chamber music. And it wasn't so much that like the content of, I mean, the content of that session was great, but I was just like, I was so mesmerized being in this space where everybody cares so much about this that they travel from literally all over the world to convene on this on converge on this one place and just talk about music and how we can make our students better musicians. And it was an absolutely incredible experience for me. And I missed one Midwest since, and that was the semester I graduated because it was the same, like that was the Friday of Midwest. And
Mhm.
so that experience changed my life, and that's when I was like, I gotta stop running. It's time. Um, so yeah, I hope I answered your question.
No,
Yes.
absolutely. I mean, we were talking last episode about Midwest because we brought up, we had the topic of, passion, and is it your environment or is it the job that might be an issue? And one of my kind of, I guess, sentiments was, if you go to Midwest and you were so happy about music and teaching, but then you go back to your job and you're like, I don't really like this. It might be the job. It might be the environment, not the job. Because the job of teaching music, obviously at Midwest, we are so like just enriched and kind of revitalized, like, oh my gosh, I can go back and do this. So, I always say anybody who's listening, go to Midwest because I'm like a young child in a candy store. It's amazing. It really
I
is.
will have to say, like, being a flute performance major for the past all my life, like, or all my collegiate life, and the fact that when was the first time we went to Midwest? Was it our sophomore or
Sophomore
junior?
year.
Sophomore year.
Because
Sophomore year of undergrad.
we were in that busted hotel, the Chicago Loop.
The Chicago
Oh
Loop,
no, South Loop, South Loop.
South Loop.
Um,
Mhm.
but like we as a group have gone to ever since we started going our sophomore year of undergrad have been going every year except for the pandemic. The one pandemic year was it? Yeah, I
Yes.
think that we didn't
Yeah.
go. But like ever since then, we have been all over the country away from each other, and that is the time that we all like come together again, like there. And it's so funny because usually I'm walking around, people assume they're like, "Oh, you're a band director." I'm like, no, but like I like to be band director adjacent. I like learning about like the educational values that I can put in my lessons with my own private students, and I also like to learn about the curriculum that this is going to be reflected in my education and my students' education. And you're so right. Like it's being in a room with people who you're like, we all care enough to be here right now, to be learning, to because Midwest, you don't have to do that as a band director. Like educators don't have to go to conferences, they don't have to do professional development, but you're doing it not even for yourself, but you're doing it for the benefit of your students to learn those other perspectives and to just like know what's happening like within the field and what are the new things to try out. So I can see how if you're teetering on should I do it, should I not do it, should I do it, should I not do it, going to Midwest will seal the deal. Like no matter which way you choose, you will know once you leave.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned something about it being the environment of the job. I also think that like when you leave those spaces of of super enrichment, you have to then surround yourself with people that are going to continue to pour into you in that same manner. Like I I think that I'm the worst band director of my friends, and I'm okay with that because they're really good. It's not saying that I'm bad. I'm constantly looking at what they're doing and learning, and they're looking at me and they're learning. I, it's easy to get in spaces where you just start complaining about what isn't, and you don't see the positive. So I really think that it's a choice to, number one, surround yourself with people that are gonna provide something positive for you, and help you grow,
Mm.
and not allow you to stay in the negative space, because there's something positive in every position that you're in. You have to choose to see it and build on that. And a lot of there are people that don't do that, and I'm I can't be around skinniness because I that ain't for me.
Amen. Like, and on that, I think the podcast that you are on right now is a product of that. We three went to college together, and
Yes.
a lot of our peers were of complained, and it was just like we did not like that. So our core of us, we were like, we're doing this. So we were the first three to go to Midwest. We're always going to these things. We presented at GMA last year, and it was like we're always going to the next level, or we're pushing each other to the next level. So you have to surround yourself around great people. I love that you said I'm the worst band director of my friend group. And you know what? I'm okay with that. And I am okay with that because I really feel that. Surround yourself with great people. And I think it will really lead to some great, great things coming out of it. But I know watching you just be yourself and seeing your progress is so inspirational. And I was reading your dissertation and you said representation matters. And I think in the last couple of years, that has become like a buzz phrase, just like any of the other DEI and all that. Can you talk about exactly representation and your definition of that?
So I think you got to put it in some perspective. And in my defense, in my dissertation defense, I said some things like I had to run it by my best friend and run it by my parents before I said it. was like, I ain't trying to step on too many toes, but I had to put it in perspective for my committee. And I said, to my knowledge, I'm the only I'm the only Black female music education student on any level at one of the largest colleges of music in the country. I'm the only Black female in any discipline. And that's a problem. And and part of the issue is you don't see it if nobody says it, like, because this is normal. But the same way that we've worked really hard to make sure that we're programming diverse literature on our programs, you got to look at your actual program, like the people sitting in the seats, and say who's missing.
Yes.
We can't compartmentalize it to one area of what we're doing. We've got to look at it a little bit more holistically and say, oh, that's not right. Something's missing. There has to be the same intentionality put into encouraging. You know, I know we need to encourage everybody, but this is my story this is my story that I'm telling. So we need to encourage those Black females to go into the profession so that our profession looks like our programs. I mean, I have yet to be under the baton of a Black female. My now 15-year-old, 14-year-old, and 8-year-old niece have seen something in person that I haven't seen myself from the audience. They came to my first concert in my doctoral program. They sat on the first row, and I walked out for the first time and I almost lost it because they're in the front row and they're like, "Go TT Devin, go TT Devin," and I'm like, they literally seen something I've never seen. They're watching something that I've never watched, and I'm this big grown human, and something's got to give. Yeah, that shouldn't be the case.
I just want to bring up, because every time someone talks about the idea of you don't know the problems there until you address it, it brings me back to this TED talk that every time I think it's on intersectionality, and it talks about the idea of you can't address a problem until you identify what the problem is. But a lot of the time, people don't even know that there is a problem to be identified, especially people who are not from that perspective. So for you, you're like, this is my life. Like, this is what I live. And that's exactly what everything that we have been saying about all these initiatives and things that have been going on is like the issue of having all these initiatives and these things that are being created for representation, accessibility, all that stuff, is that a lot of the time the people in the positions who are creating it don't share that perspective of the people they're trying to uplift. Therefore, there are a lot of like blind spots within and holes that we obviously see within their programming, their initiatives, all the things about who's not sitting in the hall, that they can't, or they won't see without the guidance of someone who's been in that perspective, which brings me right back into my whole thing of it matters who are in those spaces. It matters who have those positions, who are the people who are creating the initiatives that we're doing, because if it's not someone who can see it, then nothing's really going to get addressed. It's going to be very surface level, as it has been for the past, God knows however many years. But actually fixing the problem takes someone who can see, who knows, someone who would have already thought we have one of the only, if not the only, Black female like in the music field who's doing a PhD at this level right now. They probably didn't think about that. They probably saw you like, oh, this is great, and they just kept moving on. to be honest.
Yeah. So it was an interesting process for sure. I mean, my committee chair and he and I had several conversations about this. Patrick Dunnigan, I love him to death. Like that's my friend. He was great throughout that process. But he said when he started, he's like, I don't deserve to be on this committee. Like, I'm an old white guy, and I'm excited to be on this committee because I want to learn. And while I needed him on the committee, I wanted him on the committee so he could see.
Yep. And that's what it takes. Like when I'm like navigating these waters for the past couple of years, and like a lot of people are, And one of my biggest things has been, you have to know that you did a bad job and you didn't do a good enough job to know how to correct it, to know how to be better in the future, so you can empower those people to end up like Dr. Moore in those positions sometimes, to end up like Anthony Morris, end up at like Lauren Green, earning these higher education degrees to then go inspire more people. Right. It's like, that's like the job. If you have the titles, if you have this, use them as a speaker box and just push people that need to be pushed into that direction, that like give them the gates and be like, go have fun. Like one of my students, she's like, she didn't know she wanted to major in music. And she was like, I kind of like writing music. I said, well, you're in chamber groups now. Write something for your chamber group and you and I will work on it and we'll get it to where you can perform it on the next chamber concert. And it's going to be your first ever, and you'll be a world premiere, and you'll have a premiere by the time you graduate high school. And you did it on your own. I would just let you know if it is physically impossible for the instruments that you were trying to do. That's the only thing I would do. Is like, I don't think a clarinet can pop up a triple E. Like, you might want to like knock that down a little bit, or the horn can't go this low. But that's why I'm like, because we started a chamber program where I work at a high school. It's kind of like, do whatever you want. If you don't like the music I picked out for you, good. Tell me what you want. I will go find it for you and then put it on your stand so you and your friends can start working on it. Like, it will not hurt my feelings. Trust me. Not a lot of people like the music that I like, and that is okay because we are all different humans at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about, because be the change if you don't see it. And I want to get your perspective on that, because I know me and Lauren, we've talked many times of when I was growing up, I was not under a baton of a specifically Black gay male. Because from my perspective, everybody had to be masculine. Everybody had to be this, kind of stand up, almost militaristic type of teaching. And I was like, that's not who I am. That's not my personality. So am I allowed to be in these spaces to be here? And we talked with Lauren about it, and I think we were at Buffalo Wild Wings having a 3-hour conversation about the politics of music. But we were all having a great time. We were having a great time, and she was just saying, looking for a Black professional flute player. There's limited searches, for that, and I think both of us. Right. And we came up to the conclusion of, okay, we don't see this, so let us be the change for this. And I think that's our perception, but not everybody have that. Not everybody's like, okay, well, since I don't see myself, I'm just going to go over here and do something else. Can you talk about, either be the change or maybe sometimes just change the field? What are your perspectives on that?
So the 7 women that I interviewed, I talked to all of them about them having to be something that they literally didn't see. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm like, I've seen it now, and now I'm trying to be like y'all. Like, I see it from a distance. Mm-hmm. It's a heavy responsibility. Mm-hmm. to be that change. Like, you feel like you got the weight of the world on you, and I don't know that everybody is built for that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, it's crazy because I know exactly what you're saying. I completely understand. I've had this exact conversation with many of my friends, but I wanted to just affirm that I completely understand what you're feeling.
Like, for me personally, I going through grad school, there were days where I couldn't sit that grad office. I was like, I just can't, because there's literally no, like, right now what I'm thinking, there's nobody in the room that gets it. Yeah. 0 people. Yep. And I got to FSU. There were 12 graduate assistants, and 9 of them were women. Like, that's crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there were 2 Black men and 1 white guy, which is crazy. I was like, ooh. And still, there were moments where I was like, I gotta dip. I just need to be in my own space.
Mm-hmm.
I was going somewhere with that, and I totally lost it. I'm so sorry.
Oh no.
It totally went away. Can we come back to that?
Absolutely will. Yeah, no, I completely understand that because there have been times, and Michael, do you remember when we were doing Winds in Igual with Keeler our senior year in Wind Ensemble?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment where there was just a lot going on in my life, right at that point. But also, like, I remember feeling a lot of pressure. And I always said this, that with especially within ensembles, I always felt like my mistakes counted more like against me than other people's mistakes did. So like if I heard someone messing up, back in the clarinet section, I'm like, oh, they have an off day or something. I just throw it behind my shoulder. I don't really think about it. When I made a mistake, I put it so much on my character. And it was so crazy because I remember having a day where I felt like I was getting beaten down, like beaten. And there was a bunch of conversations that year about me just feeling like I was overworked and I didn't know how to say no to things. I wanted to be seen as a student who everyone could count on Lauren. Like Lauren's always there. She's always prepared. You don't have to worry about her. And I remember sitting and literally just getting overstimulated with my environment. And I had to stand up and walk out of the rehearsal. And I remember like Keeler looking, like making it like he was like looking right into my eyes. And I just like looked back at him and was like, I got to get out of here. Like it was just a lot happening. I think Michael, you came out and saw me like sitting there, like literally crying outside because I was so overwhelmed with like the pressures I had put on myself in that environment. And also just thinking like being at that point, I can't remember. I'm trying to think of who else was in the ensemble. There may have been one other Black female in that ensemble, but whenever I first started, it was just me, like my freshman year, and for a good amount of time. And it really does get to you. After a while, you're just sitting there. You're like, why am I the only one here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I crazy? Is it like, should I actually be here? Like, and you start overthinking and overguessing, and then that's what was happening. I was kind of unraveling while I was sitting there, just kind of going, my brain was being like picked apart. And then I was like, I am about to explode. And I had to like separate myself from that environment.
And if I may
Michael,
affirm you, like I just said, everybody's not built for it, but you chose to be in an uncomfortable space so that when you finish in this uncomfortable space, you can go take up whatever space you want and make it yours.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I don't take for granted the opportunities that I've been given to be able to live in a bunch of different worlds that I didn't necessarily grow up in. My undergrad was at FAMU, one of the most prestigious HBCUs in the country. I was constantly surrounded by Black folks. Mm-hmm. I got to my master's program, I was like, whoa, this is a lot. And then I got to the PhD program, was like, whew.
Yeah.
I gotta go back across the tracks real quick. I'll be back in 2 minutes. But we learn how to live in this world, so that when we get an opportunity for it to be ours, for it to be our space, like, and feel like it's our space, everybody knows that I belong here, and this is how I'm going to navigate in it. Mm. And I know it's uncomfortable. One of my professors talked about being in circle 1, circle 2, and circle 3. Circle 1 is, that's home. That's your most comfortable place. Circle 2, you're being stretched a little bit. Circle 3, you're like, ooh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in circle 3 in the last 3 years. But now I'm out here in Oklahoma. It don't feel so much like circle 3 because I've been prepared for this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, you got to go through that time of that circle 3 and make it comfortable. Mm. So that when the next time you experience that level, you're like, nope, I've seen this. Let me reel this back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was you. like you read my mind, because I was literally going to ask you how it felt, because it took, I know I'm dumb. It took me like 3 years to understand that Florida State and FAMU were in the same city. But then also, I was like remembering your path, how you went from an HBCU, one of the most prestigious ones, to then PWI, is that what we call it? And you went to that, and it was like but it's in the same city. But also, I wanted to bring up something that we were talking about, the whole that like Lauren's mistakes count more. A friend of the podcast, Wolson, former director of Dutchtown and now director of West Springfield, made a powerful thing on Facebook that I love, because I do not like this man. Jimbo Fisher, former FSU coach who's now at Texas A&M, actually has a worse record than the former Texas A&M coach, who was not a white man. But everybody is praising Jimbo Fisher right now at Texas A&M. And Wilson said, you have to be twice as good to get half. And it just like, because like I never, to be honest, I'm a Georgia fan. Like even when Georgia was bad, I still didn't look at anybody else, because I'm like, we just bad. Don't look at us. Like, don't look at us right now. And then like now that we're better, I'm like looking at these programs like Texas A&M, like your last coach was the same as this coach. Right. Like, but we're praising this one. And all it's like I'm just like, that's like, to put it in for people in the podcast, to put in perspective, that it's not all music, but football. Like Nebraska just had their first interim head coach, a black man, for the entire athletic department. No coach in the entire athletic department has ever been black. And now it's him. And I'm like, I don't want it. I could not know what it feels like to be in his shoes right now, because the team is not good already. First of all, the team is not good. And he's having to take that over and be the first of the entire athletic department. So it's like, we're in the music field, and we're still having first, like the first person who did this, the first person who did this. I'm like, and we're supposed to be the progressive of society.
Absolutely.
And we're still having first, like football still having first. But it's funny, like if you look at head band directors, Anthony mentioned this earlier, whole masculine thing really lines up with head football coaches and all these things. It's like, if you want to be a head band director and do all this stuff, it's like a head football coach, all this other things. I like, putting things together. Mm-hmm. But no, I'm glad you mentioned the whole, like going from an HBCU to a PWI, and how that helped you and influenced you and tested you to now sit in Oklahoma State, which is in Stillwater.
Stillwater, yes.
Yep. Look at me.
Yeah.
Look at you knowing your geography.
The raging metropolis that is Stillwater.
The raging.
No, but we go back to that point you were making about like some people just aren't, like the idea of being the change, and they're those people who are going to be those catalysts for change, right? And there are people who are like, it is not my job to bear the weight of what others behind me will have to bear. And I it's hard, but I get it. I understand, because for me, myself, I am that person. If Anthony is that type of person, you are that type of person where if you do not see it being there, you do it. Like it is something in our DNA that literally goes, you must, right? And I have friends who have been very real with me, and they're like, I don't have that in me. I don't have the capabilities to do it. It's not embedded in with me to want to be that change. Like support it, yeah, like push whenever it is brought upon me, absolutely. But to look and see something and go, that's not there yet, so I'm going to create it. It's a very specific, I think, type of quality that you have to be, because not everyone is built to be a leader. And that is something I have repeated, and I will continue to repeat time and time again, because I have seen the worst of them. And I've seen the best of them. And some of them were meant to be there. It is a calling that you yourself, almost sometimes you have to kind of push away from it, right? I remember whenever the leadership position started being a thing, at first I was a little scared of it, because I was just kind of like, I don't think I have the authority. And I still do it. I still literally do this to myself now, where I'm like, I don't feel like I have the authority to speak on the things that is literally my perspective. And I've had to have mentors who are like, Lauren, you do have the authority. You do have the right. You have to tell yourself that. You have to stop doubting yourself. And once I allow myself to be put in those spaces where I do have like people looking to me to see what the answers are, looking to me to hear my perspective, it's a feeling that I can not reciprocate in any other environment that I'm in. And I know it's something that is uncomfortable, but also I know that growth comes through being uncomfortable. You can't stay in the same places and grow. That's just not how that works, which is why we jump here, jump there, go back here, move there. Like, so I wanted to bring that up because but also at the same time, the people who are, that they don't feel inclined to do that, that is not necessarily that fine. You know what I mean? There are other roles to be played other than that. It is just being able to self-identify, I think, is the thing.
And that's something that's popped up in the chamber music that we've been doing. Like there's 5 people, maybe 7 max. And people are like, I want to be the leader. And I'm like, if you want to do it, then maybe take a back seat. Because that's more natural for you than taking a back seat and supporting somebody else who doesn't feel as comfortable. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple of cases. Like in my head, it's really like people who want to be leaders kind of scare me a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm like, why? Like, is there something like this? Like, is it the power hungry? And then there's other people that's like, that might be feeling like they don't want to be the change, but okay, but they want to support. They want to help the people who want to be the change. And the people who need to have who want to be the change need that village, or they won't make it and they will crack and crumble under it. And it might change their entire like life course. And that's like one thing I've been teaching is like less about the music. Cause like, honestly, they're just starting chamber music. They're going to be bad at it. Sorry. That's a band director thing. The first time you bring out a piece that doesn't have traditional major chords, they're going to be bad at it. So like, as long as half the groups understand what's going on, that's the goal. But now how is this applicable to, big word, SAT, to real world situations and other things? But yeah. Yeah. Wow. I use a big word. I'm proud of myself.
Good job, Michael. That's Michael's word of the day. Applicable.
A word of the week.
And on that, I think one thing that I've had to learn is because I've kind of gotten in hot water, I have to remember that because of my personality, if something is wrong or something is not exactly, how it should be operating, I'm like, all right, we need to change this now. It needs to work efficiently. You don't have enough people of color around here. Let's get this in here. Like we finna like do it right now. Like it needs to happen right now. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. And that is one of my things that I've had to learn is like, hold on. Let's pump a brake real quick, and let's first of all kind of assess what's going on and why it's like this. And because sometimes for people like us that want to change, there's like this, like the iceberg conspiracy.
And a lot of things at the bottom.
There's a lot of things under. We don't always see what's under because there is usually a root of the problem somewhere deep within. And so we got to find out what that is before we go, on attack mode. And one thing that I was reading in your dissertation that shocked the hell out of me was the HBCU. There's only been 7 women band directors after, what was it, 1890 something?
Long time ago. A real long time.
A very long time. 7 band directors.
At the HBCUs?
At HBCUs. These are historical, for people that are listening, historically Black colleges and universities that are established for Black men and women to go to school, okay? And there's I think 180 something HBCU institutions, and only 7 band directors have been Black women.
You're touching a nerve there, Anthony.
Because it is
a nerve.
It is a nerve for me because honestly, I think it was a couple months ago. I've been doing conducting symposiums for the past couple of years, and usually I'm the only Black person there. But then after I stop thinking about me, like I'm the only Black person, I think about where are my Black women at? And at these conducting symposiums too. Like, yes, I'm the only Black male, but where are Black women? Then I think, where are Black women within all realms of music? And then I think, okay, well, HBCU, historically Black colleges and university, they're there. I did not get the pleasure to go to an HBCU for my undergrad. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's there. And then I read your dissertation. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
It is not.
So it was a nerve for me, but I know it's a nerve for you. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, and, y'all can listen back to this and maybe edit this out. I don't personally care, but I've been up after in this last year. I've been on the job market, and so applying for jobs. You throw out a bunch of applications, and I'm not saying that I was the best candidate for any of these positions, but I applied to several HBCUs. Couldn't get a call, and it hurt a little bit, but I was like, this ain't where I'm supposed to be, and that's okay. That's okay. But it doing that research, I was like, if I can't find me in those spaces, do I actually have a chance? Like, do little Devons have a chance? And this dissertation came as a result of me thinking, like, shoot, I don't see me. Like, and that's crazy. I mean, I think about who I was in undergrad with. I think I can count on one hand how many female music ed students there were at FAMU at the time, and I think two of us are still band directors.
Wow.
Maybe three. But I can only speak on my experience. It's heartbreaking to see that, but all I can do is me, and they didn't give me a shot, so I'm here. I'm happy. I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do, and hopefully that changes at some point. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and my mission is to encourage little black girls to go into the profession of music education and be dope band directors that create dope musicians that shell out more music ed students. So
it's their loss, by the way. It's complete their loss.
Yes.
When I read that, I really got angry, and it brings to the point of, what are we teaching our young Black children that they can't even go to a school that is designated for them, and they're still not represented? And this is also for me, TikTok, I'm always on TikTok and always scrolling, but one TikTok came up and it was talking about, being a gay Black person at an HBCU is not always, quite, acceptable. But that goes into Black community structure and things like that. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But it's like, if I can't even go to a place where I'm supposed to feel comfortable and supposed to feel welcomed, and I'm not getting that, where the hell am I supposed to go? And the people that are in these positions now really need to sit at a table and listen to these perspectives, because you are not getting the next generation of people. One, you're not getting them at all. Like, you're not reaching to them, so they're not going to reach back. They're not going to come to you. They're not going to feel, your ensembles, because they do not feel welcome. And it goes back to the representation matters. And it's just very frustrating at that. But again, it is their loss, because now you are at Oklahoma State and you are going to change lives there. And who knows where your journey will lead past this. But I know for a fact you have changed our lives on this podcast today, talking with you. And so, and I wanted to bring up this one little fact here, reading your dissertation. You were the only female, Black female band director of 34 schools in District 3 in Florida. And I taught in District 19 in Florida as well. And my time teaching in Florida, the lack of diversity and representation there, and I know you are Floridian. I'm sorry, I'm a Georgia boy. I I was I was
Yeah.
not happy whatsoever. And I this podcast is like a journal for us because
Mhm.
last season or the past two seasons while I was teaching down there, I voiced that opinion a lot.
Mhm.
From the repertoire that is on the FBA music list to the people that are in charge. Besides Dr. Shelby
Mhm.
Chipman, who's I think now past president, but still like the people who are in charge. What is this? What is this? So how do you feel as a person who are now in this music field and really changing lives? Your intersectionality, how has that changed your perception of music education?
Well, I had to make myself aware of some of the things that I didn't know. Doing this research over the last year, my eyes, yes, it was all from my perspective, but even some of the things that I found, I was like, yeah, Devin, you need to do better. You need to do better at this. You need to do better at this. And so now I bring all of that to everything that I teach. So like I'm teaching a marching band methods class right now, and we just had University of Arkansas Pine Bluff come into town, and
Mhm.
so for the last couple of weeks I've been showing them videos of different schools from different conferences, and talking about the differences in how their show design, how they march, song selections, things of that nature. And obviously I'm versed in the I never know what to call. I hate show style. I hate that term with every fiber of my being.
Mhm.
Everybody, it's a show, so everybody's a show band. I mean,
All right.
but HBCU marching bands, I'm well versed in that. I worked with marching chiefs at Florida State, so I know that side of things. But then you got the Big Ten, you got the Big Ten stuff. You got Pac-12 is a different alien over there.
Mhm.
Um, and so just exposing them to different things. And so like we're on the field, we're lining up on the back sideline while Arkansas Pine Bluff is on the field. And they were like, what's the biggest difference between HBCU bands and PWIs? And I'm like, number one, the level of energy that you put into the show and the intensity that you play with. And so it was interesting. Like I had my students walking past me on the field last night. It was like, Dr. Moore, I get it. I 100% get it because they like going ham on the field.
Yeah.
But that like I don't know that would have been introduced, like those different cultures would have been introduced to those students if I
Mhm.
wasn't there to show them that it's not a priority. Because I mean, over here you don't get that very much. I mean,
And the
there's
respect and the respect
The
of
respect of it. That's the big thing.
because I mean we've talked about it because me and Michael we're always blasting Southern University like that.
Yeah.
I just we love us some Southern, and there were some band directors who were like, "What is that?" First of all, change the tone. That's what you finna do.
Change your
That's what I
tone.
know you're finna do. So like respect. I love that you are exposing your students to this to respect this art just as much as we work during doing this. They go hard just as much, if not more.
Yes.
So you
right.
have to respect that, and I love that you're doing that.
And I'm very candid with them, and like when I show them schools from different places, I say one of the things that I say at the beginning of every class: don't let my bias be your bias. That's a Madsonism that I will not Clifford Madsen. I don't know if y'all ever heard of him, but I will take that with me wherever I go. Every student I teach, because I know that I have some biases.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Marching 100 is the best marching band in the world. Like that, there's nothing you're gonna do to change that. But I believe in that philosophy, but I also understand that other people have different philosophies of sound and different philosophies of show design that they love and adore, and I can respect that. I may not like it, but I respect that. It's just it's different from we talk about perspectives a ton in my class. And we've had some discussions on, you know, how how their high school band programs are run, you know, and there's been some difference of opinions, and some of those discussions have gotten a little heated. I'm like, I want y'all to stop, and I want you to think about what somebody else in the class just said, and I want you to think deeper than what your initial thought is. Stop listening to respond and listen for the understanding in what they're saying.
Yes.
You ain't gotta agree with it, but I just want you to take a second and just think about it. How could that make sense to you?
Yep.
And
I love that.
And that's where I come from. I don't like lecturing. I like for my students to do a lot of the talking. I like to guide the discussion in our class. And maybe marching band methods hasn't been a discussion based class in previous years. I don't think mine wasn't a discussion based class for sure. I think about it from a philosophical standpoint. You have to know what you value in this part of your program, so that you can disseminate the information you want your students to know in a way that is that the students know that you care about them first as humans.
That just that like hits like something. So like me and Anthony and me and Lauren and me, Anthony and Lauren, like the different combinations you can create with us three talking, always get to the point. Like me and Anthony, because we've been teaching a lot together recently. Again, well, actually for the first time, like co-teaching and all that stuff, and it's been great. But like we also talk about like our colleagues in the field, either older, younger. By the way, everybody, I know I'm 24. You ain't got to tell me I'm 24. I know my age. It doesn't matter your age. It matters if you can do the job. Anyways, I got to put on that soapbox real quick. But like me and they were talking one night with leaving 1 a.m. going to go cook out or something. And it's like, people don't have what we have in the terms of like this repeated back and forth of like discussing different pedagogies, discussing different biases, discussing different philosophical things, discussing different ways of attacking things, to then get some response back and like destroy what you think was correct and then maybe rethink it. And it shows when you see people in positions, they're like, this is the way. And I'm like, no, it's not. But you don't have those colleagues, and you're creating this perfect environment. You don't have the people you went to school with. Y'all didn't go back and forth and debated and argued and thought differently, but then defended your point, but then heard the other person's point. Because like when an argument or debate gets heated, that means there's passion in the room. And I love it. Because they are so passionate about their side, but then you made them flip their perspective. Like, look at where and then that opens up like, oh. But there's so many people in the world of band directors. I feel like sometimes they get like smushed in their one school, their one region. We can talk back and forth. We're not competing against each other. All of our same thing is to create the love of music and to continue that. It's not to beat your band on this Saturday and beat your band. And it's to make music education better. And I feel like not enough people talk to each other and talk through what they're trying to do to then create something better for their students. And I love that you're doing that in your class, because then like imagine the networks that would have been created in all of our classes that we took, like the stronger network, even the people you weren't really friends with. Oh, he had this perspective. Let me go talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'm struggling with this part of my program and he had this different perspective. Maybe we can chap it up again and see if I can make something new in my program to make the students want to do this again. So I just want to mention that I love that in a very long-winded way.
Again, just seeing you teach and do great things is such an inspiring thing. And I'm just so glad that you had time today to join us on our podcast, because it has completely been a treat. I know I've, written down some things, and I have also read the first 24 pages of your dissertation, because that's the only thing I could download. So if you do have the full thing, please can you just send it our way, because it is such great reading and great knowledge. And some of the people that you interviewed have been on the podcast, and we know them. So it is great. And I'm so glad that you were one of the people to just say, we need to talk about this, because this is an issue, because this is my issue. I am living this, so I am the expert to speak on these issues. So thank you so much for doing that work. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so that's how we're going to end our episode today. Thank you again for all of our listeners. Please check out Dr. Moore. We will link all of her things down below. And please follow, like, subscribe to Relative Pitch. And if you have anything or comments about anything we said, please drop them down below in the comments. We'll love to discuss on our next episode. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.